Welcome, everyone. I am Glenda Dawson, and I have MoonGirl, Sarah Garcia here.
Ooh,
How are you, my little
um,
princess?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Good, good.
A little
And,
technical difficulties earlier, but we're good.
you know, we're used to that. Come on,
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true.
we're used to it. We
Damn
just
that Mercury
roll with the punch.
retrograde.
We keep at it and we go with the punches and just roll with it and continue.
Typical Latino woman. Yes.
Well, definitely Gemini. So,
Well, Aquarians are stubborn as F, so I can concur that.
there you go.
Speaking of
So,
stubborn, or guess the Taurus. Just kidding. No
we
one
just
say a
gotta,
horn. Look around and you
the
get the horn.
Absolutely.
welcome, Brent Thomas. How are you today?
Circle of truth. This is what I'm going to call it, the circle of truth.
Absolutely. I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm really thrilled to be here and have a chance to talk with you guys and discuss all the craziness that is the paranormal.
Yes.
Yeah, good. So tell us about yourself so the audience could get to know you, what you do, how you got
Sure.
here.
Okay, so my name is Brent Thomas. I am the creator and host of the Paranormal Portal, which is both. Well, it started out as an internet radio station on a channel called Truth Frequency Radio, or TFR, and I started it in 2016 and was doing that for a while, and then I kind of fell into the YouTube thing as well. So in 2017, I started the YouTube thing as
Mhm.
well as the internet radio thing. And all I did was just simulcast my internet radio shows on a live feed on YouTube.
Mhm.
And so I did that for a couple of years. And then a good friend, well, at the time, he wasn't a friend. He's another show creator and host, Wes Germer of Sasquatch Chronicles, somehow caught my show. And he contacted me on Facebook. He said, "Why isn't this a podcast?" And I was like, I don't know, maybe okay. so so it became a podcast as a result of that, and he of course has been a great mentor and friend throughout the whole process. But so now I have the Paranormal Portal, which is a podcast on all the major platforms, as well as YouTube and internet radio. So I guess I'm spreading as much as I can like a bad rash. So
Yeah.
so that's how it all came to be. And as far as how did I get to that point, I think throughout the course of my life, I've always been absolutely attracted and fonded of the idea of the paranormal. And when I first created the show, I kind of wrote this statement, and it really holds true. It's really kind of the root of all of this is that I love the fact that the world isn't just labeled and categorized and shelved and in a real sterile subjective manner. I love the fact that there's still mystery and there's still discovery and there's still magic in the world around us. To me, that is exciting and powerful because we still have the ability to of discovery of these journeys, whether spiritual or physical or both, in some of the different phenomena. And I love that fact. I think that's absolutely exciting. When I was really little, I was attracted to the idea of like monsters and movie monsters and stuff. So I went to what I had available then, and this is this is pre-internet, so I'm dating myself here, but I'd just go to the local library, and literally it was about a 3-foot shelf that housed all these books on ghosts and Bigfoot and strange phenomena and stuff. And I would just go through them and I just was fascinated by this, but there wasn't really an ability to learn a lot because it was just this little section. But I learned what I could, and I was always extraordinarily curious about it. So it really kind of the paranormal kind of came into my world more than just idealistically, but actually started having experiences. I'm not one of those kids that was like, oh, I had these, weird experiences when I was little. I didn't have anything. As far as I can tell, I had a real normal childhood up until I turned about 14 years old, is the best I can figure as I think back to this. And I had an experience, not with a ghost, but with something else. And I'd love to tell you the story if you'd like to hear it.
Please.
Yes.
Okay,
Please.
so I was a 14-year-old kid, and it was summer break, and I lived out rurally. I grew up out in the country basically, but where my home was, my family's home, and was right next to a state forest in southeastern Minnesota.
Mm.
And so the hill behind our house is called Rattlesnake Bluff, believe it or not. But
That's a pretty neat name.
yeah, it is. It's kind of wild. But I never did see. Excuse me. I never did see any rattlesnakes. But anyway, it became like a summer ritual for me. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of friends, but there would be like summertime friends that would come down during the summer times. And that's when I, basically my social life came alive. And other than that, it was just me and my brothers arguing about stuff. But so we, my friends would come in, and this particular friend and I think he was about 15, I was about 14, would go hike up on this bluff, this Rattlesnake Bluff. And it was part of a state forest, as I mentioned, or a state reserve anyway. And I'd been up there my whole life, it was basically my playground for all intents and purposes. And I'd never had anything weird or strange happen throughout all those years of growing up and being up on that hill. But this day in particular, we had hiked all the way up to the top, and we were on our way down. And we're coming down this, it's kind of a seasonal melt off bed. It's not really a stream bed because it's only running water during the spring when the melt off is happening. But we're working our way down this thing because we'd been up on the hill all day, and it was getting dark, and it gets pitch dark up in the forest when you're up there at night. So we're like, yeah, we better get down. So we're working our way down, and we got to this point that was kind of a drop off point, like a waterfall point, except again, it's all dry.
Right.
And we're kind of standing there, kind of plotting our course, but it's kind of skittish, the kind of traffic in here. I mean, it was really, in some places, really dangerous, but we'd done it all our lives. So we kind of stopped and surveyed the route ahead. And as we're standing there, suddenly behind me and him, about maybe 8 to 10 feet, I don't know. I mean, the distances are subjective to this, this young me, but it was really close behind me and above me. And it made this deep, horrible growl. And this was the most incredibly terrifying experience of my life, because the biggest thing we had there was white-tailed deer, and deer don't growl. I mean, there was coyotes and things like that, but it's all small fauna. But then suddenly there's this enormous thing, whatever this is. And the growl is so deep and powerful that it's actually shaking my body at the same time as I'm hearing it. It was just so incredibly terrifying, because I mean, for all intents and purposes, what I was hearing, I was convinced was about to kill us. And I didn't know what to do. I froze. And a lot of times people talk about being zapped, by some of these creatures, and they can't move. I could have moved, but I didn't dare move, because whatever was making that sound, I just didn't want to provoke it. And I couldn't bring myself to turn around, because I didn't want to see what this thing, whatever it was, looked like before it killed me. I was just like, I don't want to look. Just, God, I hope this is quick. Well, it continued to growl, and we continued to stand there for several seconds. And finally I said to my friend, I'm like, what is that? And he said, I don't know. We have to get out of here. And so, in cases like this, you often hear the advice, don't run, you'll trigger a prey response. Well, I'm 14 years old, and whatever's making that sound is all the way out of fight category for me. So like the only thing you've got left is flight. And so right. We took off down, recklessly running down this rocky ravine, and ran. And whatever it was didn't follow. But we got to a point then where we met the road, and we stopped, and nothing was following us. Nothing was there. It was like, oh my God. And so we quick hurried home, but I was stuck with that experience and nothing to do with it. I didn't know in my head, what do I do with that? What was that? because I had no concept of a lot of the cryptids or cryptozoology.
Right.
So I was absolutely perplexed and terrified. And I just decided, I stayed out of the forest probably for a good year and a half or 2 years after that. But finally, I did get back in there, never had another experience. But it wasn't until I was much older, I'm kind of jumping ahead because in between these times I had many other experiences, but this was my genesis moment into the, getting slapped in the face by the world of the paranormal. So I was carrying this for years and like, what do I do with it? What was that? And it kind of just got back in my mind and kind of fell into one of those memories that's you never really access, but it's kind of there. And it wasn't until I saw the movie Jurassic Park where the first one where those little kids are in that car all by themselves and that T-Rex is there and it comes down right to the window growling. And all of a sudden every hair on my body stood up and I was like, oh my God, I know what that feels like. I remember that now. And it just jumped back into my mind. And still I didn't know what it was, but it brought it all back to the surface. So I started researching and looking and it was shows like Finding Bigfoot where I found out that things like Bigfoot are not just in the Pacific Northwest, because again, I'm pre-internet. I'm a young kid and there's no reference point for me, but I did know of In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, and he told me Bigfoot was in the Pacific Northwest. So that couldn't be it, but it turns out maybe it could have been. Now, I can't say I had a Bigfoot experience, but what I can tell you is something extraordinarily huge, enormous, was standing behind me growling in a place that it shouldn't have been. As an adult, I was doing some product shots and I got to thinking about it, researching. And so I went up into that same forest and did some product shots, but I started to look around as well with that in mind that maybe it could have been something like that. And I did find like 6-inch saplings snapped off 4 feet above the ground with no deadfall on them. And things like structures that were like, I don't know, it was more of like a dugout shelter, but every piece of wood that was used on it was broken. Nothing was like a person would have done it. So I don't know that what I had was a Bigfoot experience, but I think what I had was a Bigfoot experience. So that was kind of my genesis moment. That was my, wait, there really is this weird stuff. It's not just me believing in it. So it kind of started my own personal journey into all of this with a whole new renewed fervor and interest, because, well, if that's real, if that could be real, then what else could be real? Well, I always believed in things like spirits, and I always believed in UFOs, and honestly, I've had experiences with all of them, which, may to some people may sound like, oh, sure he did, but really I did. I and it's how I got to this point.
So that must have been frightening for a 14-year-old.
Oh my God. It still remains.
It's sad, Glenda.
It's sad, not a lot.
It still remains to this day the most terrifying experience of my life, because I was just, and as an adult, I don't know if it would be much different. I would still be probably plenty terrified. But when you're young, you're a 14-year-old kid, you're kind of feeling like, yeah, I'm kind of man, I'm kind of grown, I'm tough, you got this self-image, and in one moment that was just shattered. I was this mewling babe wanting to, crawl into the fetal position. It was just it emasculated.
You know what? Exactly like my sons. They're around that age. They think they're tough, and then when things get hard, Mom, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would love my mommy to have been there at that time. Believe me. But it was just me and him, and we ran for it. But it's, and I'm okay. And whatever it was, I believe really just wanted us out of that area for any number of reasons. If maybe it's a family group that was nearby, there were some young ones, and they just wanted these other, beings to get the hell away, because, I think that whatever these things are, they've chosen our absence. So, when we're too close, they do things like that. They kind of corral us out and push us out. And so I think if it wanted to, I wouldn't be here doing this interview, but it obviously didn't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
So you said you had experiences with aliens too, right? Do you, in your eyes, is there a correlation? Sorry, I'm a little sick right now. Between Bigfoot and UFOs, and can you tell me what you feel?
I personally, I guess, it's anybody's guess with any of this stuff, for sure. Like, all we can do is speculate. But for me, what I believe is that oftentimes people do just that. They may see a flying saucer and then they see a Bigfoot, or they see, some correlation, and so they think one must be because of the other, and the other, so that it's somehow connected. I think personally that Bigfoot is extraordinarily curious, because there's many accounts of people seeing them looking in their windows and stuff to see what's going on in there. I think they're extraordinarily inquisitive. And so when we see lights in the sky, what do? We go out and we're looking at them. And I think it's very similar for
Nosy
these.
neighbors.
Right. Yeah. I think they're just looking like, what do you suppose that is? Just like we are. Like, what is that? So I think that in a lot of ways we're very similar to them, and they're very similar to us. And I don't mean to, try to personify them with human traits, but I think that they are. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that they find people fascinating, because I guess if you're in a world of sticks and plants, probably it's pretty cool to see some of the lights and stuff going on, that and sounds that we do. And so they come in and they watch children playing. They've been seen watching TV through windows. I mean, this is a very curious and possibly very intelligent being. So I think they see these lights in the sky, and maybe they kind of forget about that they're supposed to be hiding, and they get careless, and people see them and think, well, that must have rode in on the saucer. But I don't think so personally. But again, it's all speculative, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you like to share some of your UFO experiences?
Well, I've only got a couple of them, but one of them really was the pinnacle moment when it was like, oh, they're real. That's it. I know they're real now. And this experience actually happened about 12 years ago, I think. I keep throwing that date out there for years now, but I'm going to be right one of these years. But I can't remember, because the one thing I as I was talking to you guys before we recorded, it's like, God, life is just happening so fast. It's hard to really quantify things in a period of years, but I think it was about 12 years ago. I was working for a company and I was still living in Minnesota at this time, and I'm currently now in the north of Idaho. But excuse me. But I was doing marketing and such for this company and with this company, and so I had to travel out here to where I am now, because the company I was working for headquartered from Indiana up here, and there were some meetings going on that were going to be for contracts and things and advertising and stuff. So I flew in and attended those meetings, and while I was here, the owner of the company had bought this mountain house, and it's up this logging road. I mean, it's really not much of a road at all, but it's kind of a road. But he had this beautiful house in this mountain valley that's about 25 minutes out of where I live now. And it's all up in the mountains alone. There's other cabins up in this area, but there's only like one or two in the entire mountain range up there. There's only like one or two other full-time houses, and his was one, and he had a lot of work done to it. So he created this beautiful cabin or this beautiful home. And he's like, you're in town. How would you like to just go stay up at the house up there? Nobody's living there now, and then I wouldn't have to get you a hotel. And I'm like, you know what? That'd be awesome. So he took me up to his house, and he gave me a tour, and he kind of wandered around and showed me where things were, because this house is completely off the grid. So you had to know a few things, just because, everything doesn't come with a utility. It's all done on property there. So there's things I had to know about turning on and off. But as we were wandering around up there, he showed me, hey, check these out. I got these night vision binoculars. I'm like, oh, very cool. And I was really excited by that, because I've always been fascinated by night vision, but I've never really had a chance to play with them. So I went through the day of meetings and stuff, and the night came. And so I drive by myself 25 minutes out of town up this mountain road to this home. And the home is in this valley, and it's essentially, it's sitting up on one edge of the mountain coming up, but there's a stream in the very bottom, and then there's another mountain on the other side. So I was really kind of excited, because it was getting dark, and I was like, I want to check out those night vision binoculars. And mostly because I wanted to stargaze, because I'd heard that in our galaxy, most of the stars are red and you can't see them with your naked eye. But if you use night vision, suddenly the constellations explode in millions of new stars, and it's really fascinating. I would really recommend to anybody, if you get a chance, take night vision scope or binoculars or whatever, and go out and look at the stars, because you're not going to recognize any constellations anymore. There's just so many more stars, and weird groups of stars, like almost geometrical patterns of these stars that are off in the distance. And these binoculars were only like 4 power, which, if you understand what that means, it's really not much magnification at all. But they really did, the night sky was just brilliant and amazing. So I'm outside all by myself up in this mountain house and looking at the stars, just in awe, because it was already a beautifully bright, cloudless night. And there's a little bit of a moon, so it was a little bit of ambient light around, but it wasn't bright by any measure. But you know how it is when you're standing in the dark, your eyes just get used to it. So I'm looking at the stars, absolutely amazed, and it's just beautiful and wonderful, and kind of relishing in this moment of being up alone in the mountains, looking at the stars. And then I started playing with the binoculars. I'm like, wow, I can really see everything. So I looked over at the opposing mountainside and saw the trees in there, and I'm like, God, I can actually see the branches and stuff. This is really cool. And then I pan over to the side I'm on and look down his driveway. Now, with my naked eye, the driveway just kind of turns into a black tunnel because it got all this overhanging trees, and then it just disappears into the darkness. But with the binoculars, I can see all the way down to the end. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And so then I pan up, and I'm panning up this, I don't know trees really well. So it's like maybe a blue spruce, maybe it's a ponderosa pine. I don't know, but it's some kind of pine or conifer tree. And I get to the top of the tree and I'm panning up. I'm going to look at the stars again. About 30 feet above the tree, sitting there silently hanging in the air, is a flying saucer. And it's, honest to God, it's just sitting there flying. It's flashing lights. It's kind of different than a lot of the descriptions of like flying saucers, because with flying saucers, you think the top and the bottom plate come in and it forms a point. But the one that I saw was a bit different, because there was a gap between those top and bottoms. And in the middle was all these panels. And those panels were flashing light in a circular pattern, kind of like a marquee on a movie theater or something, the chasing lights. That's what it was like. But it was flashing these lights. And I'm like, oh my God. Now, my whole life, I believed in the potential or possibility or probability that we weren't alone, but I'd never seen anything. And my God, I'd looked. I sat out, as I said, I grew up out in the country. So I'd sit and look at the night sky, see the occasional shooting star, but never saw anything. I'm like, I wonder why I don't see anything, but so many other people do. And so I don't know. I just figured it was maybe just timing or whatever. But there it was, sitting, floating above the tree, absolutely silent, not a sound. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm looking at it. And then I'm like, I got to see this with my own eyes. I lower the binoculars, looking in the same position. All I see is stars and the tree, the silhouette of the tree. But there's nothing there. I'm like, oh my God, it took off. Oh no, I raised the binoculars. It's still there. It's still there, flashing light, sitting there, hanging up there above that tree. Lower it, it's gone. Raise it, it's there. So I realized they can hide. They can cloak or whatever you want to say, but they can make it so that they can be in our existence, in our reality, but we can't see them. They can hide from our native eye spectrums or whatever. And I'm blown away. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm doing the up and down, up and down, up and down. And then it occurred to me, they're sitting up there. I'm sitting down here looking at them, and they're just sitting there. But I'm about the only thing going on in this whole valley. So chances are they're sitting above that tree looking at me. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. I'm good. I quickly put the binoculars away, decided it was time to go inside. So I locked all the doors and I sat and paced for hours. Because, for two things. One, I just had this incredible epiphany that this is for sure real. I'm seeing it. It's real. They're there. And then I'm also thinking, oh, wait, I've heard the stories. I don't feel like I need any probing tonight, so I'm going to, just keep checking.
You escaped that probing.
So I'm looking out the blinds and stuff, waiting to see if the ship maybe sat down, but it was a real quiet night after that. Several hours later, I did finally just maybe collapse into sleep, but I don't have any missing time. I don't have any, weird feelings or any aches and pains I didn't have before I laid down. So I think that was the end of the experience.
Any soreness, nothing. You were good.
No, I was good and regular. So hey,
perfect.
So, but it was incredible. It was the moment that it became real, and it's such an incredible thing. So now when the topic of UFOs comes up, it's like, I used to come at it with a real inquisitive mind, but now it's like, yeah, they're real. I don't know. It really changed me, but I felt really honored too, because I think maybe they showed themselves to me, or knew that I was out there with these binoculars, and they let me see that.
Mhm.
I don't pretend to understand how telepathic they are or whatever. I've heard the stories. I believe that they probably are. They're probably pretty advanced to us, and they know what we're thinking. They know what we're doing. But they let me see that, and that moment was really incredible and special. Now, since then, as soon as I got home, I ordered those binoculars. By the way, I went right on Amazon and I ordered them right up. I was like, I'm gonna have some of those. And I have them, and I have looked at the stars, and I've seen other things, but nothing so up close and profound. It was,
Mhm.
most of what I see now is more distant and in the distant sky.
Mm.
So that's my UFO experience.
That's a wonderful experience. Definitely, as you can say, an eye opener, and definitely that moment of aha. um. Now, for the next few days, did you start wondering, second guessing yourself, or?
No, the only thing I really wish, as I look back at that experience, I wish there was some manner to record on those binoculars. They're just for looking through. There's no recording function on them. But if I could have recorded that moment, I would have the Patterson Gimlin film of the UFO world. I mean, it was right there, sitting there, just hovering, and it would have been incredible. So all I can do is share a personal experience. But after that, no, I didn't second guess myself, because I mean, I was there. I was very present in that moment. It wasn't those, did I see something? It was about the size of a school bus, sitting up above this tree. So it wasn't like something off in the distance. It was maybe 150 yards away from me. And it was huge. Not like a mothership huge, but it was definitely a pretty good sized craft. And it was just sitting there, I think watching me.
I can just imagine
Yeah.
when you realized that they were probably looking at you.
Oh yeah, that was just I suddenly got really uncomfortable. Like,
Run.
wait a minute.
So who are you more scared of, the Bigfoot or the aliens?
Definitely.
I think the moral of the story is you need to stay out of the woods, sir.
They can stick to the urban areas. That's me, the urban explorer. No.
Every time's a charm. You might get that probing the next time, so you better watch out.
I tell you what, I did. It's weird. It's like a moment of panic when I turned from observer into realizing I was the observed. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's like everything kind of tenses up and you go, oh, wait. I didn't want that little tractor beam to come up and start sucking me up, like a vacuum cleaner. So I just went inside.
Smart move.
So those two experiences have definitely influenced your life.
Mhm.
And what made you start the show? Paranormal Portal.
Okay, so the show, I'm one of those people that never knew, and I'm not young anymore, so I was always really jealous. I grew up with people that knew what they wanted to be in like elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
and I was always so jealous of that. And I'd watch them go through their lives and apply themselves towards this, and someday they became what they said they wanted to be. And I was so frustrated because what am I supposed to do? Where's my place in all this? And I've done many different things. I've worked in IT. I worked in a correctional facility. I taught on a high school level computer literacy. I've worked retail. I did construction. I've done this whole plethora of things in my life, but never felt like, I could have applied myself, I suppose, to several of them and made a life out of it, but it was never my passion. It was never what I wanted to do. And it was funny because I was actually during this working for the same company that I mentioned led me to seeing the first UFO. But they had a contract out with a guy who did IT work, but he also had the Truth Frequency Radio. That was his creation and his show. And I was sitting at work one day, and all of a sudden it was like, I want to have a show, and it just came to me. Now I don't know if this was somewhere baking subconsciously in my mind, and that was the moment it just sprang to my awareness, or if it was given to me, or what. I don't know if I channeled this, or if it was something that I had just kind of developed in my head over this lifelong fascination with the unknown. But I thought I want to do a show, and instantly the name Paranormal Portal jumped into my mind. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it. And so I pitched it to the guy. I was like, you know what? I really want to have a show. And I kind of broke it down to him. And he's like, let's do it. And suddenly I had direction. I had a place that was mine. And I don't know how else to explain it, but it was like just this life of just feeling like I didn't belong anywhere really. Like I just hadn't found my place. And then I found my home. And so that was what spurned the Paranormal Portal to life.
Welcome to the dark side. Yes.
If you only knew the power of the dark side. Yeah. Well, that's where I live now. So
welcome.
Good to be here. It was fun. It's been an incredible journey, though. I'll tell you that.
It sounds like it. And so now people can find you on YouTube, right?
Yeah. You can find my shows on YouTube at youtube.com/paranormal portal. You can email me if you have experiences and would want to talk to or be a guest on one of my shows. And you can email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. And the podcast is available everywhere from iHeart to iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, Google Play, Podbean, Pandora, Stitcher, just a dozens more. There's so many other platforms, but I'm with a company called Libsyn. I don't know. I'm signed with them to handle the marketing of the podcast. So yeah.
Nice.
Sounds like you're all over the place, which is good. Yes, and people can hear different perspectives on everything and different experiences.
Yeah.
Now, do you stick to like one subject or?
No, I like to cover everything. So with my podcast, I generally either I'm interviewing personalities like researchers or celebrities, or experiencers themselves. Those are the three areas. Sometimes I will take a topic and just discuss it on the show, just me and the microphone kind of thing. But generally speaking, I interview people that have had experiences and talk with them about what they've seen and been through. But the YouTube shows are quite a bit different because I treat them more like a variety show, and just I cover all the different things. I cover news at the beginning of every live show and talk about some, paranormal stuff in the news or just oddities in the news. And then we do something with my Discord community where we pose a question to them and call it the question of the week. And then they submit their responses and we read them on the air. And then we do Cryptid Corner. We discuss cryptids. We discuss ghosts. We sometimes on my live show, I do live paranormal investigating with my house that I'm in right now is got some activity, and I seem to end up in houses that have a lot of ghostly activity. So for many years now, and I'm not sure if I'm bringing it or if I'm triggering it or if they just like me. But in any case, I've caught some pretty incredible stuff, even doing live shows, but I'm also doing paranormal investigating, doing some ghost investigating. In fact, the end of this next month, I'm going to be going to St. Ignatius in Washington and researching there. So
what's like the best evidence that you've ever caught?
Oh, I think mostly and here's the thing. I'm really kind of in the early phases of this research thing, and a lot of it, like I've seen incredible paranormal ghostly activity. I used to own this 1894 house. It was built in 1894. It was a Queen Anne Victorian house, and this house had quite a bit of activity. It was in this house that I had probably one of my most profound experiences, and that was There was many different things. Like I was reaching down to grab a pen, it would roll away. I would hear doors close and such happening in this old house. I would hear sometimes noises like footsteps and things like that. But my ex-wife actually had a bunch of weird things happen to her in there. And so, but we ended up divorcing, and I was alone in the house. And she had taken a lot of the things to start her new life. And so I was in there and I was heading out of the door, and I walked out of my kitchen and was walking through the empty dining room, which had a chandelier hanging down. Well, there's no table in there. So I walked right through there, right under the chandelier. And I got to the door right on the edge of that, which goes out on the porch and then outside. And as I grabbed the handle to leave, I had this feeling like, no, wait, turn around. And so I did. I had my hand on the handle. I turned around. And just as I turned back facing the dining room, the chandelier pulled out of the ceiling and crashed to the floor.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying it just fell. I'm saying it pulled out of the ceiling, screws, pieces of plaster and everything, and it hit the ground. And I was like, oh, now actually, and I think there might be something wrong with me, but honest to God, I've had several paranormal ghostly experiences. And my hand to God, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but it hasn't happened. I don't get scared. Actually, after that chandelier hit the floor, I was pissed because I knew I now had to patch plaster and rehang a chandelier on the ceiling. And
No, the only thing she
And
left
clean it up.
was the chandelier, and it broke.
Now, it wasn't a big, ornate, beautiful antique. It was probably from the 50s, some tinny, kind of a approximation of a chandelier.
Right.
But it was just the fact that, oh God, now I got to do that. I was just mad. So, but it did happen. I did witness it. And many other things. I saw an apparition in that house, a full-bodied apparition one time, walk by as I was napping on the couch. And I thought it was my ex-girlfriend she and I were arguing at this time. And I was like, okay, I'm just done. I got to go to sleep. So I went and slept on the couch. I laid down out there. And my ex-girlfriend had this talent, and God bless her, whatever, but she had a talent to never
PG-13, okay?
She was not usually done arguing until she was done, and even though I was done, that didn't matter much. So I'm laying on the couch, and it had been maybe a half hour since I came out there, and I was laying down and kind of starting to relax and getting ready to drift to sleep, and then I heard the walking, and I was like, oh God, here we go again. Ding, ding. It's round two. And I was like, oh no. But so I kept my eyes kind of closed like I was sleeping, but I was squinting, and I saw this.
You're plain dead. Awesome.
I'm not currently awake. Please continue.
Come back in the morning. But I was laying there, and I saw this woman. It looked like her, had darker hair, but she was wearing like a nightie, full length nightie. And I was like,
so you thought you were getting lucky, and you're like, okay, she's gonna make up, but to your surprise, it was a ghost.
So she passed by me, and I mean, literally like a foot from my head, and passed right by me. I'm like, okay, I'm not moving. I'm still asleep. Don't. And I'm laying there, and she walked into the kitchen, but the light didn't turn on. And I'm waiting there, squinting my eyes, like, when is that light going on? God, she's got to get back to sleep. So, and finally, I realized the light's not coming on. What's going on? So is she standing there brooding in the black kitchen or what? I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, all right. And then I get up and I walk into the kitchen and turn on the light, and she's not there. I'm like, what? And then I walked through again back to the bedroom, and she was sound asleep. So I was like, oh. That wasn't her. So
did you ever try to do any research on the house? Any history on it? Did you ever find anything out?
Yeah, actually, it's got a really interesting house. It's called the Densmore House in Red Wing, Minnesota, and it was built in 1894 by the owner of the Red Wing Iron Works, and he built it for his two spinster daughters. And one of his daughters was named Frances Densmore, and she would sit up in the legend has it that she would sit up in the upstairs window and listen to the drum beats of the Native American tribe. and transcribed the music. And her name was Frances Densmore, and she ended up devoting her life to running around to First Nations, recording their customs and their music into sheet music. And her work is on permanent exhibit in the Smithsonian.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was her house and her sister. And I don't know much about the sister, but there was never any tragedy there. But maybe they just loved the house, you know.
Right.
So yeah.
So
Good.
you said that was one of the.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. God, there was another time in a house before I lived in this house, but this is with the ex-wife when we were still together. We lived in a brand new house. We just moved from the Twin Cities down to a house my uncle had built because we were going to move into the Victorian home, but there was somebody in there, and so we had this few-month window, and so my uncle had just built a house and was going to sell it, but he's like, you know what, you guys can just stay there and just rent it while you know, before I sell it. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So we're in this brand new house. It's a brand new development. And before that, it was just some kind of field. I mean, this whole area had been really has a lot of Native American history. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was some significance to this land before. But that house was, even though it was brand new, was very active. Always hearing the walking around at night when you're sleeping, the squeaking of chairs as if somebody's sitting in them. And it was also the first location that I saw my very first spirit orb in with my own eyes. And it was an incredible experience because I didn't really, this is prior to me really going full tilt into the paranormal. I knew about ghosts, I knew about UFOs, I knew about Bigfoot to some degree, but I didn't know much about the spirit world other than ghosts, right? So I was sitting in the house, and my wife had gone to sleep. And I worked nights at a factory at this time. So I was like, you know, my days off, rather than try to screw up my sleep schedule, I'd just stay awake most of the night anyway on my days off. So I'm staying up and I'm sitting on the living room floor, leaning up against the couch watching television. And it's dark night, summer night, windows are open and stuff, but I'm sitting there and watching television, and I was smoking a cigarette. I used to smoke at that time. And suddenly there's this little, I don't know, 25-cent piece, like a quarter size or 50-cent piece ball of light about 2 feet away from my nose, slowly floating by. And it looks like kind of like a little sun, except not all the glare, but it was this golden ball of light. It was just floating in front of my face. I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm like, I don't know what it is. And I was thinking, that's really weird. And it's just slowly going by. I'm like, I think I could grab it. Should I grab it? And then I was like, no, I should not grab it. I don't know what it is. So I didn't grab it, but it just kind of went past and then just boom. I don't know where it went, but it kind of cleared my field of vision and then just must have shot off or something or disapparated. But it was there. It was as plain as day. And I wasn't like I was doing any chemicals or anything at the time. I mean, I was pretty clean, straight laced kind of guy, but I'd seen an orb. And I've only seen one with my naked eye one other time, and that was in this home. And in that situation, I had just gotten up in the morning. It was about 6, maybe 5:30 or 6 in the morning. I got up early that morning. I was just like, oh, I need my coffee, because that's like plan A for the mornings is grab the coffee. So I'm like, I got to get some coffee. So I going into the kitchen. Now, when I go into my kitchen, it kind of goes straight for a couple steps, and then you got to go to the left where the rest of the counters are. So it kind of does a L shape to the left. So I'm walking up to the into the door, and I'm kind of looking down because I'm not ready to lift my head up and deal with the world. And suddenly around the corner of the cupboard, about a foot off the ground, is this another little golden ball. And it comes around and comes right in front of my legs and then just goes right behind me. And I turn and it's gone. But that's the 2 times that I've seen orbs with my eyes, not with like camera orbs or any of the photography. I don't know. So, you know, with photographic orbs, they're kind of nebulous, whether it's real or some artifact of the light or, you know, any number of things. But this is with my naked eye twice. So I don't know what it was that I saw, but I've heard people suggest it could be fae, it could be a spirit, could be many different types of entity. I don't know. but it was there, and it just seemed to kind of like, oh, excuse me, coming through, and just shot right by me, and that was it. So really cool experience. But I had that, but also in that house I was telling you my uncle built, I was I worked in the factory at that time, as I said. Now, my ex-wife had a talent. No matter when I was taking a shower, she would need to do dishes. And when she did dishes, the hot water would be gone from the shower. And so I was all excited because I got home early before her on this day. And I was like, oh God, I'm going to go home and take a great shower. And so I was all excited. I got in, locked all the doors, and I stripped down, got into the shower, turned on the water, and it's just steaming. It's beautiful. And I know I'm going to have a long, luxurious shower with no dishes getting washed. So I'm in the shower and I'm all lathering up. I'm having a bubble party in there. It's my moment, and I'm living it. And so I'm all soaked up. I'm like a cocoon of bubbles. And suddenly the water, boom, goes ice cold. I'm like, oh no, she came home. Oh no. So I've got to rinse every inch of my body in ice water at this point. So it's like, oh no. So I get under the water and I'm dealing with it. I get all cleaned up and stuff. And I quick shut off the water. I'm like, oh, and then I realized I'm still hearing water. Like it's like really running water. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? I slide open the shower curtain. I'm standing there buck naked, and the faucet in the sink is blasting hot water. It came on full steam. When I was in the shower, it's like somebody went, "You're not getting that shower." I was like, yeah. Now I don't know what it is, because
like exposed.
I think there's psychological. I didn't get scared, but I got like creeped out. Something about being naked and having something like that happen makes it
voyeur ghost. It's a voyeur.
Must be into horror. That's all I'm going to say.
So most of your experience have been either in the woods or with exes. So like more of the story, stay out of the woods and stay single. I think.
Well, I'm actually married.
More experiences now. No.
We've had a lot of experiences in this house. So I seem to be a magnet for this stuff, so that's okay. Like I said, it doesn't freak me out. I just figured that I think we're swimming in a world of spirit. We just can't see it. I think if suddenly we could see with clarity all of the spirit around us, we would just be like, oh my God. So I think we share an existence with them, and they seem to at least be sometimes aware of us, and we seem to be aware of them when they make themselves known, for the most part, outside of sensitives like yourself. But yeah, I just think it's very common. I don't think it's creepy. I just think it's normal. But I think because of our traditions, because of our fears, because of the unknown, and the fact that we can't observe and see them regularly, we feel vulnerable, and so it freaks people out. But I think for the most part, spirits are not trying to hurt or harm or to scare. They just want to be acknowledged.
Absolutely. Now, really quick, back to the exes. Did they ever?
I was waiting.
Did they ever experience anything like you did? And when you did experience this, did you ever mention it to them? Did they say, "Oh, you're crazy," or you're making things up, or they're like, "Yes, I felt something too," blah blah, or no?
Yes, all of them experience things as well. I gotta say that in their paradigm, in their belief system, it wasn't a good thing for them. I mean, they weren't. Yeah. They were never really accepting of it. It's just like, I don't like this. I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. And they tell me about it. Of course, I could try to share things with them, but it was like, I don't think I want to do that because they're already weirded out. I don't want to add a little salt to that. So I'll just keep most of my experiences to myself, but yeah, my ex-wife, she had plenty of experiences with doors opening and closing. The furniture squeaking was mostly her. Hearing walking around in that first house was her largely as well. She heard many of those things. My current wife has experienced several things as well here. So yeah, they like my current wife is pretty okay with me when I cleanse, when I do that. when I go around with frankincense and sweetgrass and sage and kind of clear things out. She's good with that. So yeah, but no, it's not just me. I'm glad, which is kind of good because I think if you're in a bubble with this stuff, it's good to have people experience it with you. Like the growling, my first story, the growling. Now, if I had been alone, I would have questioned the hell out of that through the years. Be like, I must have just imagined that or something. But I know someone was there with me. The UFO, I wish I could have shared that with somebody because, my God, what a moment. But that's my biggest regret is I can't. All I can do is share my story and hope that it matters to people that hear it. But yeah, we're just not alone in a lot of ways.
And it's good that you share it because it helps others who have gone through it by themselves.
Yeah.
Know that they're not alone. That it's a common experience that in different ways, but we all experience it one way or another.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful parts about doing these shows is that when I don't know how many times I've talked to experiencers that like they talk and they just let it all come out and afterwards they're like, oh my God, I've been carrying this for 40 years or 20 years and they didn't have the outlet for it. So it was
especially back then, they lock you up, throw away the key.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the good thing too, is that I think by the presence of shows like ours, I think it really does help to push the narrative forward that people feel like they have a place to talk or at least a place to listen to help them understand their own experiences,
And ideally, I mean, we would love to have someone next to us who saw the same thing. That's not always the case, but of course we'd love that because there can't be two nut jobs. If you tell a story to somebody, they're like, "You're not do. You're both nuts."
Well, I say misery loves company, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's really powerful though, and I guess for me personally, I never used to talk when I first started doing my show. I never talked about my own experiences because I felt like, well, that's going to seem kind of convenient. Oh, you got a paranormal show and you've experienced ghosts and you've experienced UFOs and, and all of these things. So I always kept it close to the chest. But I did notice that over time, I just decided to start sharing some things. And I think that really helped to create a better bond with the listeners because
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm coming at it from a person with true empathy and sympathy of it because I've experienced these things. So I think people like the idea that someone really understands what they're saying, Yeah.
Another nut job. Yay.
We're taking over all of us nut jobs.
All of us, for sure. I can't wait. Stay this way. Now, you said you're going to go on an investigation soon. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Some details?
Yeah. Well, the one that I'm going on, so I've done several investigations, and so I have 3 done currently. One was a ghost town on the top of a mountain in Montana, and I'm making these into episodic videos for my YouTube channel. But then I've been to the Davenport Hotel, which is this beautiful hotel in Spokane, Washington. It's like a jewel box hotel. You really feel like you're in a palace when you're in there. It's just so beautifully done, but had some fantastic experiences there. And then I did another hotel in Spokane called the Montvale Hotel. And that's all of the hotels I've investigated with a friend of mine, Charles Howard Johnson, who's a paranormal investigator as well. And he's also
our best to him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And he's also the one that put together the St. Ignatius investigation. Now, that one's going to be fun because not only are we investigating St. Ignatius, but the night before and the night after we finish investigating, we're going to be staying at a haunted house. So I think I'll have 2 investigations for the price of one. So that'll be pretty great. So all of those will become hopefully episodes of their own, depending. I don't know. I mean, we could go to St. Ignatius and flatline and have nothing happen. We investigated a bar near here that's very haunted, but the night that we went there, only one profound thing really happened, and everything else was really flatlined the rest of the night. So that's the thing with going out to investigate, is you can't always create episodes out of stuff that, because sometimes just things don't happen. It's just not the right
You
night.
can't guarantee there's going to be anything that happens ever.
Yeah, exactly. I like to reference it as catching lightning in a bottle. Well, trying to capture ghost activities like capturing lightning in a bottle. You can, everything could land perfectly and you'll get amazing stuff, but there's other nights that you'll just sit there and go, well, I'm getting tired, let's go to sleep, you know.
I guess I really am nuts. I didn't see nothing this time. We said everyone's
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a great journey.
Give
Yes.
us your contact information again so people can get in touch with you.
Sure. You can find me if you want to email me, reach out to me. Paranormalportalradio@gmail.com is the email address. But our homepage with all of the social media and stuff is paranormalportal.net. And that's kind of the home base for everything, paranormalportal.net. But if you're on YouTube and you want to catch some of the live shows that are more lighthearted and variety based, that would be youtube.com/paranormalportal. And if you want to catch the podcast, just look at any of the platforms that are out there: Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Pandora, Google Play, Stitcher, Castbox, any number of them. Just do a search for Paranormal Portal on those apps and you'll find it. So those are the places to find me.
Yay. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I had a great time with you guys.
Thank you. And I definitely was like, I need to have him on. He was kind enough to ask me on his, so I definitely wanted you to come on ours.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and it's great to meet all of your viewers as well. So I hope they found this interesting.
I'm sure
love
they
it.
will. I'm sure they will. Thank you very much. Thank you, MoonGirl. And thank you to our audience for being here week after week. And as always, we send you blessings and we love you. Bye.